I'm Rupanuga. I'm a disciple of His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, grand disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Before we begin, we will always, as usual, offer our respects to the Supreme Lord and ask for His help in giving us something to say about the text today. So chant with me if you will. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Nitai Gaura Premananda Hari Haribo Jaya Om Vishnupara Paramahamsa Paribhajaka Charja Hasto Tarasata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribhajaka Charja Hasto Tarasata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON Guru Parampara Ki Sri Rup Sri Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Sri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Sad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Sri Mathura Dham Ki Sri Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Sri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Sri Sri Radha Kalachandi Dham Ki Ganga Devi Ki Jamuna Mai Ki Tulsi Devi Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Brihat Madanga Transcendental Book and Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Ki Nitai Gaura Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishnapadaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunivadi Paschatadesha Tanine Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim yasam tato jayam udirayat nastapareshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Once again, for those who have just joined us, we're reading this today from the 9th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 18, and this will be text number 23. So if you have your phones with you, you can go to vedabase.io and pull this up on Srimad Bhagavatam. We'll do word-for-word pronunciations in Sanskrit before we begin. And repeat after me, please. Yayatir anabhipretam daivopahritam atmana manas tu tad gatam buddha pratijagraha tad vacha. Now we'll try to recite as poetry. Yayatiranapipretam daivopahritam atmana manastu tadgatam buddhva pratijagraha tadvacha. Once more. Yayatir anabhipretam daivopahritam atmana manastu tadgatam buddhva pratijagraha tadvacha. Chant please. Would you chant? Yayatiranavipretam daivopahritam atmana manastu tadgatam buddhva pratijagraha tadvacha. Yayatir anabhipretam prahritam manastu tadgatam buddha pratijagraha tadvacha. Yayatir anabhipretam daivam paritam atmana manastu tadgatam buddhva pratijagraha tadvacha. Would you like to chant? Mati? Okay, all right, that's okay. Okay, so word for word translations, please. Yayati, King Yayati, Anubhipretam, not liked. Daivam uparitam, brought about by providential arrangements. Atmana, his personal interest. Mana, mind. Tu, However, tatgatam, being attracted to her, buddha, by such intelligence, pratijagriha, I beg your pardon, that's spelled with an A after the R. And that's not the same as in the writing above in the Sanskrit. We were chanting Daivoparitam, and here it is spelled, where were we? Well, okay, anyhow, we will continue. We said, Buddha, by such intelligence, Pratijagraha, oh, I'm sorry, I was confusing two different words. Pratijagraha, accepted. Tatvacha, the words of Devayani. And translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Shukadeva Goswami continued, because such a marriage is not sanctioned by regular scriptures, King Yayati did not like it, but because it was arranged by providence and because he was attracted by Devayani's beauty, he accepted her request. Let's repeat this, please. Sukadeva Goswami continued, because such a marriage is not sanctioned by regular scriptures, King Yayati did not like it, but because it was arranged by providence and because he was attracted by Devayani's, am I saying that right? Devayani's beauty, he accepted her request. Devayani. So, the purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, would one of you like to read this purport into the microphone? Just make sure it's turned on. Yes, please.
Purport by His Divine Grace Prabhupada.
Now use a loud voice because people at home are listening to this, and if that microphone is not turned up sufficiently, they're not going to hear it. So I'm asking you to speak with it close to your mouth. Thank you. Did it go on? Push the button on the bottom. Push the button on the bottom and hold it. It's on the bottom of the shaft. It has to be green. Is the battery? There is another. I'll go ahead and begin, and when you come back, I want you to pick up where I left them. This is the purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. According to the Vedic system, the parents would consider the horoscopes of the boy and girl who were to be married. If according to astrological calculations the boy and girl were compatible in every respect, the match was called yotaka, and the marriage would be accepted. Even 50 years ago, this system was current in Hindu society. Regardless of the affluence of the boy or the personal beauty of the girl, without this astrological compatibility, the marriage would not take place. Would you begin from there?
Yeah, sure.
Do you see where we are?
A person is born in one of three categories known as Devagana, Manushagana and Rakshasagana. In different parts of the universe, there are demigods and demons, and in the human society also, some people resemble demigods, whereas others resemble demons. If, according to astrological calculations, there was conflict between a godly and a demonic nature, the marriage would not take place. Similarly, there were calculations of pratiloma and anuloma. The central idea is that if the boy and girl were on an equal level, the marriage would be happy, whereas inequality would lead to unhappiness. Because care is no longer taken in the marriage, we now find many divorces. Indeed, the divorce has now become a common affair. Although formally one's marriage would continue lifelong, and the affection between husband and wife was so great that the wife would voluntarily die when the husband died, or would remain a faithful widow throughout her entire life. Now, of course, this is no longer possible, for human society has fallen to the level of animal society. Marriage now takes place simply by agreement. Dampatye biruchir hetu. Bhagavatam 12.2.3. The word abhiruchi means agreement. If the boy and girl simply agree to marry, the marriage takes place. But when the Vedic system is not rigidly observed, marriage frequently ends in divorce.
Om Gyanatimidandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamaya Darati Swabharantikam. Chant with me, please. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jutta Padkamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagvatatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Savadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karanasando Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswami Namane. So we have an interesting story here, and the Srimad Bhagavatam is just full of interesting stories. But unlike many novels that are being produced every day, every year in our society, these stories have some beneficial effect philosophically for us. It helps us to understand philosophy. Whereas if we were just reading straight philosophy, and sometimes the Bhagavatam has quite a lot of just straight philosophy without the stories, sometimes it's hard for us to maintain our interest because we're so accustomed to getting just bites of information from the internet. And that seems to be, and our attention span is so short that it's sometimes very hard for us to read for any period of time because there's so many distractions, other things, not only coming around us physically, but also disturbances coming to our minds. So this is quite an interesting story about a young girl, and I want to call her Damayanti, and that's not correct. Devayanti's, yeah. And so she had a close friend whom they they played together. Devayanti was the daughter of let's see, what's his name? Anyhow, one of the very powerful sages. She was the daughter of a sage, and this other girl was apparently the daughter of a sage as well. Although she, according to the story that is given throughout this chapter, she considered herself somewhat superior to Devayanti. And so as they were playing one day, they came upon a pool of water, pond, or I don't know whether it's pond or river. It was stated as though it were a pond, like let's see, I don't know how we would say it otherwise. So they decided to take bath in the water and to play, just have a good time playing as friends. And they were accompanied by many of their girlfriends. And so they just stripped off their clothes and left them on the bank, and they got into the water, and they were having a big time splashing around. But then a great personality happened to come by about that time, and he was riding a bull. And who was that personality? Who rides the bull? Lord Shiva, absolutely, yes. Param Vaishnava, Lord Shiva. Very powerful sage. He's not ordinary. He's not on the category of Vishnu Tattva, but he's in his own category. He's Krishna appearing as Lord Shiva. And he does not have all of the qualities of Lord Krishna when he comes out. Just like an actor will go behind the curtain on the stage and come out dressed differently, and he may appear even inferior to the character he was playing earlier. But we know that Lord Shiva is not inferior. Rather, he's considered by devotees of Krishna to be Param Vaishnava, the topmost Vaishnava, topmost servant of Lord Krishna in this universe. And everything he does is in accordance with Krishna's wishes. Even we see in the latter part of the Srimad Bhagavatam where Lord Shiva actually fights with Lord Krishna, and they both have their own weapons. And of course the weapon that is produced by Lord Shiva is conquered by that weapon that was produced by Lord Krishna. And these were the weapons were like personalities who came, and they were engaging in fighting with each other. And as it turns out, the Shiva Joya, I think, produced a tremendous heat, like the heat at the end of the close of this millennium. The sun becomes many times hotter than usual, and the entire universe is destroyed, according to what we've heard. But Lord Shiva Lord Krishna produced Narayana Joya, and this personality was extremely cold, and he was absorbing all the heat that was coming from the body of the Shiva Joya. And so the Shiva Joya had to come and beg Krishna for help, because apparently Lord Shiva was not able to give him help there. I'm repeating this from memory. I've read this quite some time ago, but I think these were the major details of that battle between Lord Krishna and Lord Shiva. But anyhow, we know that Lord Shiva does not fight with Krishna unless Krishna desires that Lord Shiva fight with him. Just like when the two gatekeepers, Jaya and Vijaya, the two gatekeepers of Vaikuntha, were cursed by the four Kumaras to take their births in the material world. Then Lord Vishnu came from where he was, and he actually kind of took the blame. He said, all of this is happening by my desire. And so he gave the Kumaras, he gave Jaya and Vijaya the option of either coming at 7 lifetimes as his devotee in the material world, or 3 lifetimes as his Enemy, yes. One who is very much against him. And so we know that about the appearance of those two great personalities. So whenever Lord Krishna wants to fight, he usually does not choose an ordinary individual. He chooses a person who is capable and desiring to serve him in that way as his enemy, which is it's kind of a strange thing, isn't it? That Lord Krishna would actually take these two gatekeepers, and of course there were other reasons for that. It had to be a benediction to them that they would be serving Lord Krishna in this way. And we find ourselves kind of in a similar position, except that we haven't been sent directly by Lord Krishna into the material world. We've come by means of our own past reactions. And in this lifetime, we've been very fortunate to bump into the devotees of Lord Krishna through the mercy of Krishna's great disciple, great devotee, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Prabhupada. And it said that Lord Krishna's mercy follows the mercy of his devotees. Even Lord Balaram, who is the first expansion of Lord Krishna, he himself is subservient to Krishna, subordinate to Krishna. So much so that in many cases he would remove himself from the situation in which Krishna was having to, perform some very difficult activity with his devotees. Just like, for example, the Battle of Kurukshetra. Krishna agreed to be the chariot driver of Arjuna. What was his name? Yes. What was Krishna's name as the chariot driver of Arjuna? Parthasarathi. Yeah, Parthasarathi. That's the name of the presiding deities in our New Delhi temple, by the way. Parthasarathi, Ratha Parthasarathi, if I remember correctly. Anyhow, so we can see then that sometimes great personalities, they come into this world and they have some difficulty. Like Shukracharya was the name of Devayanti's father. I believe that is correct, Shukracharya. And it seems to me that this might have been the same Shukracharya that was the spiritual master of Bali Maharaj. Whenever Krishna appeared as Vamanadev. And so Bali then was a great servant of Krishna, but he was born into a demonic family. Very much similar to Prahlad. But as a matter of fact, I think Prahlad was the grandfather of Bali, wasn't he? Isn't it correct? Thank you for helping me there. So anyhow, so Shukracharya's one of his daughters, I don't know how many daughters he had, but this one daughter was then, she had her friend, and they were out, and they decided, getting back to the story that we were starting out with, they were in the pond or the lake or whatever it was, having a nice bath. And I'm not sure whether it was on this platform of the earth, or whether it was in the heavenly planets. It's not. I did not understand that entirely from the text. I presume it was on the earth planet. When they saw Lord Shiva come riding by on Nandi, his bull, they of course immediately tried to get out and get dressed. And the girlfriend of Devayanti put on Devayanti's clothes, but without intention. It wasn't her intention, but she found the first clothes she found, she put them on in order not to be present naked before Lord Shiva, because that would not be so good. As a matter of fact, that happened with a couple of other demigods too, didn't it? They were sporting, but these two demigods were the sons of the treasurer of the demigods, whose name is Kuvera, Manigriva and Nalakuvara. They were sporting in the water, and we see that when Shukadev Goswami came by, was this the time? This was the time that Shukadev Goswami came by, and of course he was completely detached from the body that he happened to be, and he was completely unclothed, and a beautiful young boy. But the girls had a great deal of respect. The girls who were playing with these two demigods. Am I mixing two stories, or have I got the same?
It was Narad Muni was passing by, and they did not wear clothes because of him.
Oh, that's what Narada was the one who cursed these two boys. What was his name? Nalakubara. Manigriva and Nalakubara. Yeah, that was that story. There was another story, though, in which Shukadev Goswami was walking past a lake where young girls, young damsels were playing. And they didn't bother to dress in front of him because they knew that he was on a different platform. What is the platform we call that? I can't remember. Brahmabhuta. Yes, so he was not even aware of his body. And so when he passed by, the girls did, but he was being followed by his father. What was his father's name? Vyasadeva, Srila Vyasadeva. An empowered representative of Krishna. He's not, Srila Vyasadeva, by the way, is as I understand it, is not in the Vishnu category. He's not a direct incarnation of Krishna. Parashuram is, but Vyasadeva is not. Does that diminish his importance at all? No, because he's a sold-out servitor. He is to be worshipped as much as the Supreme Lord because he's the most confidential servitor of the Lord. And of course, he divided the Vedas into 4, and he also gave the commentary in the form of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we have a great deal of love and respect for this man, Vedavyas, Srila Krishna Dwaipayan Vedavyasdev. And so these girls, however, when Vyasadeva came by, they immediately covered themselves, and Srila Vyasadeva, of course, he knows the reason for all of this. But he asked the girls, why did you cover yourselves when I came by, but you did not when my son came by? And what did they tell him? You're a householder. You're a grihasta. You're not on the same platform as your son. Of course, we have to take that with a grain of salt too. But Shukadeva Goswami, very exalted personality, and his father also very exalted. Now, so I want to get to a couple of points in this story, and that is why these girls became angry at each other. 'Cause we know that Devayanti, whenever she realized that this other girl, her friend that she was playing around, sporting with, and all the other girls, and she got mad at her for putting on her clothes, and she started saying some very hurtful things to this friend, and accused her of being lower in class than she was. Well, the friend also got angry and accused Devayanti of being like a beggar at their house. So it leads me to think that either this other girl's father was in a superior position to Shukracharya, or he was a Kshatriya. She was the king's daughter, and Devayanti was the Brahman's daughter. But in this case, Devayanti was the first one to make the mistake, and that was of really causing hurtful feelings to this other girl. So this other girl became angry also, and even though she might have been the daughter of a king, and Devayanti was the daughter of a Brahmin, neither one was exercising very much humility. So we might not expect that from somebody of the Kshatriya caste, but of the Brahmin caste, we would expect humility. Just like when King Parikshit Maharaj was cursed by Shringi, the son of a Brahmin. This little boy was powerful enough that he could throw a curse, and it would have effect. Of course, the king, as we understand it, Parikshit Maharaj, could have countered that curse. Well, in a similar way, this other girl could have recognized her position as being somewhat inferior, being that of the daughter of a Kshatriya, and whereas Devayanti was the daughter of a Brahmana. But Devayanti also acted very impetuously, and just whatever came to her heart, came to her mind, it just came out of her mouth. So she was not really showing much control. And the other girl also was in a relatively inferior position in society. So then what happened? The other girl, the daughter of the king, then was very angry, and she took away whatever clothes Devayanti was wearing, and threw the girl into a well. And you wonder, well, how is that possible? You know, she must have been quite powerful in comparison, physically powerful compared to Devayanti. So Devayanti's in the well and with no clothes, and she's probably getting cold. And King Yayati came along. He left his house, came along, and was wanting some water. So he was going to get water from the well, and he saw this beautiful young girl down there. And he immediately took off his upper cloth and threw it down to her, and she covered her body. And then he reached down with his hand and pulled her up out of the well. So then she made the argument that because I cursed someone else, I was cursed again to never be able to marry a Brahmana. And she said, so by some act of providence, you have saved me from this well, and I am now appealing to you. Please marry me, because I cannot marry in my caste. I cannot marry a Brahmana because of the curse that I received. So see, this girl, just by shooting her mouth off too much, she has put herself in a very undesirable situation, to the point that she, the daughter of a Brahmin, is having to beg a Kshatriya, who is a lower caste, to marry her. And even though the king was not too much in favor of such a marriage, because he knew that this would not be ordinary, a Brahmin girl married to a Kshatriya man, it would not do well in the society. But he went ahead and accepted her. So she then, as it turns out, the story, I read a little bit of the story earlier, and the other girl, who was the daughter of a Kshatriya, also was accepted by Yayati as his wife. And this is a whole very interesting thing. If we had time, we could start at the beginning, read the chapter summary. And I thought about doing that, but we really don't have the time to do that. So I just wanted to speak a little bit about how the anger caused these two girls both to be in a very unfortunate situation, especially Devayani, not Devayanti, it's Devayani. And now, what can we gain from this? When we're living in close association with other people in a community such as this, we have to be very careful not to let minor things cause us to get angry. In other words, if we have a service that we're doing in a certain way, and someone approaches us and tells us that, you know, what you said was wrong, or what you're doing it the wrong way. For example, when the devotees are on the altar dressing their lordships, they may have someone to come in and say, oh no, don't use that dress, don't use that garland, don't use that headdress with the deities. And it may make us a little bit angry because we've been dressing their lordships for a long time. And there are other responsibilities, like our temple president is in a very difficult position because he has to make decisions based on his best judgment of how a person is functioning in this closed, very close society. And so he may catch a lot of flack, as we say, or catch a lot of disagreements from other people. And if he allowed his anger to come out, then that would diminish his position as a Brahmana. And we accept him as a Brahmana because he acts as a Brahmana, he's been initiated as a Brahmana, and he knows how to conduct Brahminical sacrifices. And so we really appreciate that. But that's just one example. But for others of us who have maybe not such out front or very, how do we say, who are not in the position of being recognized so easily, and probably some of the things that we do are not spread around, not talked about around our community as much as the person who is in the position of temple president. Same is true for a spiritual master when he visits our community. Generally speaking, he receives a great deal of respect in our community because we've been trained that way. Tamal Krishna Goswami, my spiritual master, he gave us strict training about proper dealing with other people and also criticizing other people. So we learn from the Srimad Bhagavatam what can happen when a person who is in what appears to be a superior position then has, does something or says something that is not appropriate for a person in that position. It's not appropriate for anybody, but especially for a person who is, let's say, Brahminically initiated and Brahminically trained, then that person has to act in that way. Otherwise, he will be criticized and demeaned even by other people for his actions. So this is one of the points that I wanted to bring up today. I had another couple of points, but I think we're close to being, it's 8:30 now, and it's time for, I'd like to know if anybody has any experiences that you have had where either you have been involved in a disagreement or someone else that you know has been involved in some kind of a difficult disagreement with someone else who should be respected by you, just as you expect to be respected by other people. Of course, the Lord Chaitanya says, no, we don't expect to be respected. Only if you give up that notion that you are to be given respect by other people. Only if you've given up that notion can you effectively chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So does anybody have anything you would like to share with us? I'd ask you to use this microphone. You've known somebody that has been in a position of authority and maybe they've said something or done something that caused them to be, their position to be lowered or demeaned.
I myself been in a situation sometimes.
You have to speak loud.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Can you hear me now? Yeah. So I was myself being in a situation where I was certain place I was doing service and I felt something was not being done appropriately. So I pointed out to the authorities, but my intention was to say it politely, and I started with politely, but during convincing them, anger entered into me, angry. So later I realized there were like so many impurities in myself, and I allowed myself, because I allowed myself to become angry when the intention was to just to present it in a polite way. That was my intention, but it went into an argument. So yeah, so that happened. I felt I done a mistake, like, and yeah, I need more purification. That's what I felt.
Sometimes when we're engaged in some activity with other people, we can say something that is mistakenly understood by another person. Have you had that happen before? You say something and later on you find out that person that you were talking with became very angry, but didn't show it to you. But you find, you've actually insulted the other person, and that goes. I think that goes on a lot, especially in the society outside ISKCON. The greater part of society, where people will say something unintentionally, not intending for it to cause distress or hurt to another person, and yet it can be accepted that way. And that has happened to me, and I suppose it has happened to a lot of people. And then you have to what to do. Well, we're advised that if we ever feel that we have insulted a devotee of the Lord, that we're supposed, when we find out about it, we're supposed to go to them humbly, express our regret that we said something like that made them feel bad, and if offer obeisances to them. Of course, we should offer obeisances to all the devotees of the Lord. Anybody who has taken up the process of devotional service, especially the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we're supposed to consider that person to be rather exalted. Because if you consider the number of persons who are engaged in devotional service and chanting the Mahamantra, if you consider the number of them compared to the number of people that there are on the planet, very, very, very small percentage of persons have taken to the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. And so we have to be really careful, because Krishna is aware. He's aware of our thoughts, being super soul, antaryami in the heart. He is aware not only of what comes out of our mouths or what we do physically to hurt someone else, but also even the thoughts that come into our minds. So we have to be really careful about dealing with Krishna's devotees, and especially the one that we take as our spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be worshipped as much as the Supreme Lord, because he's the most confidential servitor of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all literatures and followed by all followed by all acharyas. So this is something that we have to do. So this story about the two girls getting angry with each other and saying bad things, and they appeared to be the closest of friends. That can happen to us as well. This is Kali Yuga. This is not back at a time when the Brahmanas were really powerful. There may be powerful Brahmanas among us even, but it's like the fire covered with smoke, or a hot coal covered with ashes. Not that easy to recognize. So let us then make an attempt to keep our company desirable, so that others don't feel like if I associate with Rupanuga Das, he's going to find some fault with me, so I would prefer not to associate with it. Something like that. And it's better to try to encourage other people. Even if you see them doing something that is wrong, instead of getting onto them real heavily about that, better to find something they do that is done really well. and praise them for what they do that is good. This works well with children too. I've got 5 kids that I raised. Of course, they're now old, gotten out of the house. But trying to get them to understand that we must be respectful to other people, and we must try to encourage them as much as possible, and especially their own kids. Try to encourage them. Don't tell them how inferior they are, because that really destroys a child's life, or it can destroy a child's life, and it can destroy an adult's devotional life as well. I know that we have people who have come to our temple and performed service for quite a long time, and they'll get into some kind of row with other devotees, and they'll wind up leaving or coming back just very occasionally. And so that's a very unfortunate thing. So this is one of the ideas that we understand. This is a philosophical point that we should get from this interesting story about 2 young girls, and then we can apply that to our own lives and think, how can I avoid causing someone else to have really harsh feelings toward me, or even try to hurt me? Because you might have heard it said that if a brahmana chastises you, you should stand with humble hands folded and offer obeisances to that person. And even if a brahmin cuts you, it is said, you're not supposed to take any action against him. Is that easy to accomplish? Now, that kind of humility is rare, to be able to stand there and humbly take what someone is saying about you, especially if it tends to denigrate your character. You become very offended by that, and other people can become offended as well. So let us try to keep our consciousness very clear, so we can see when these things are occurring, and we can take the proper action to quieten them down. We say to mollify them. To mollify that person's anger means to reduce that anger, bring the heat down some. Anything else that you would like to hear about or talk about? Well, it's time now for honoring prasadam, so why don't we go do that? We've taken Krishna in his form as Srimad Bhagavatam, and now we can take Krishna in his form as prasadam. And sometimes the prasadam is a lot easier to swallow than some rules of the Bhagavatam. Isn't that true? So we'll say, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasundabhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. We offer our respectful obeisances unto the devotees of the Lord, who are just like desire trees, who fulfill the desires of everyone, and who are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Shil Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shishi Radha Kalachandidam Ki Jai, Gaura Premananda.